It had been a bright red day. Katie discovered that although a heart is a wonderful shape, cutting it out isn't easy. Orbie learned that printing a name is hard when you don't know what the letters are. And they both found out that even though red is one color, it has a whole lot of different shades to it. It was the day before Valentine's Day. The kitchen table was covered with clippings, cards, paints, and markers, just about everything Katie and Orbie could think of to decorate the house with. When the decorating was done, everybody started working on their own personal projects. Mom snuck up into the bedroom to do Katie's Valentine. Katie asked Orbie to help her make something spectacular for Dad. Dad told Orbie that Mom was going to absolutely love hers. Everybody was busy. Orbie made a spaceship on a card for Katie. Inside the card, he told her that one day he would take her on a trip to the moon. He hid it so she wouldn't find it. Katie made a big fancy hat all covered with hearts for Mom. She tried it on to make sure the little hearts hung down properly. Orbie loved the hat and told Katie that she was a wizard. He peeked at her pile of valentines, and that's when he noticed that there wasn't one for him. Orbie burbled to Katie, asking if she had finished all her valentines. Katie smiled, and she wrapped tissue paper around the hat. She was finally finished. Orbie wondered why he didn't see one there for him, and he should have asked, but he didn't. He told Katie he had to work on his and left the room. He noticed Mom in the bedroom. She was chuckling to herself and wrapping something. Orbie pushed the door open and went in. Mom was glad to see there was only Orbie, and she told him that she had nothing to hide from him, so he could feel just free to come and sit down. Orbie made himself comfortable in the bed. He looked at the pile of silly things Mom had. Mom saw him looking. She touched him under the chin and said that it was fine if he wanted to look because none of them were for him. Orbie gulped. Mom didn't notice because she was busy telling him about the loudest red tie she could find. It was covered in hundreds of hearts. She was going to insist that Dad wear it to the office just for fun. Orbie smiled because he knew Dad would have fun with it. Soon, Orbie left the bedroom and looked for Dad. Dad was in the garage, hammering a little wooden box together. He was so proud of it. It was for Katie. On the lid, there was a tiny little heart. Orbie snorkeled that it was beautiful. Dad was glad he liked it. It was very important to him. After all, she was his daughter. Orbie smiled weakly. That was true. Orbie looked around the workshop area to see if there was anything for him in there. When he lifted up a box, Dad asked what he was looking for. Orbie burbled, "Nothing." Dad picked him up in his arms. "You are snooping around to see if there's something here for you." Orbie looked down at the ground. Dad spun him around. "You come to the wrong place if you think I have something for you in this garage." Dad whisked Orbie out of the garage and back into the house. Orbie wandered into the living room and flopped onto the sofa. He had never seen a Valentine's Day before. Katie said Valentines were for people you loved. Maybe his family didn't love him enough. Orbie looked out the window. A flower truck drove right up the driveway. Orbie was delighted. He called to Mom and then opened up the door. The driver gave the big bouquet of flowers to Orbie and said that he didn't think they were for him. He read from the card that it said, "To my two best girls, love, Dad." Orbie shrank a little bit under the flowers. They weren't for him for sure. He gave them to Mom. Katie and Mom tackled Dad and gave him a dozen kisses to match the roses. Orbie would have joined in, but he was beginning to feel like maybe he didn't belong. He went up to Katie's room and looked in the mirror. He had to admit it would be hard to love a pink-spotted guy when nobody else in the house was pink and spotted. He looked up at the sky. He really wasn't part of the family. Maybe they didn't love him as much as they did Katie. Maybe he was in the way. Orbie slowly walked down the stairs. He put his boots and mitts and hat on, and he opened the door. On the porch, he wondered which way to go. It really didn't matter. After all, he wasn't special to anybody. He walked down the street. Just as he was beginning to feel cold and not too sure about where to go, he heard Dad call him. Just before his next step, Orbie felt Dad's hand on his shoulder. Dad asked him what was wrong. Orbie tried really hard not to let it happen, but a little tear trickled down his face. Orbie told Dad that the whole family was making cards for each other, and no one was making anything for him. Not that it mattered, because there really wasn't room in the family for him. Dad was completely shocked. He asked Orbie if he didn't love his family anymore. Orbie told Dad he certainly did. We were hiding your Valentines, just like you were hiding ours. Orbie looked blank. He was so busy worrying about being forgotten, he didn't remember that he was hiding his. Orbie burbled to Dad. Was there enough room in his heart for Orbie? Dad told Orbie there was no limit on loving Dad, and Mom and Katie all had hearts big enough for 3. Orbie put his arms around Dad's neck. That works out well, he burbled, because he had room for 3, too. The next morning, when the family arrived at the kitchen table, there were Valentines for each member from the others. And Orbie opened his Valentines. He knew for sure that the whole family had a heart big enough for 3. And I have to tell you that if you ever think your family doesn't have enough room to love you, remember Orbie and know that they do.